So we had our live show yesterday morning, and we have our live show tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. But one of the topics was, who are the most hyped teams in college football? And hype does not have a negative connotation when we're talking about it here. Hype is just like, hey, who is the team that's getting a lot of buzz in the preseason? And usually the buzz is warranted based on what happened a year ago. But Florida State was an answer that we got in spades. Everybody in the moment was talking about Texas and talking about the Noles. And then I had another one of y'all get at me on Twitter and ask, are you buying the hype in Florida State? So finally I was like, we addressed it in a part of a segment. We just got to do a whole video on Florida State and the hype train that's rolling right now in Tallahassee. Because I've said it before, I have looked high and low, looked online, looked in stores in Tallahassee. There is no more garnet and gold Kool-Aid anywhere. It's all gone. It's all being chugged, and for good reason. And so to answer that question directly, am I buying the hype in Florida State? Yeah, I'm buying the hype in Florida State. Want to know why? Because the production that's returning is number one in the country, and this team won 10 games a season ago. So I already know the roster is, on paper at least, good enough to compete for a 10-win season. That's great. Well, on top of that, Mike Norvell, true to form, rubs his fingers together, rubs his hands together, a little plot going on down there in Tallahassee, and he goes to the portal and lands Jaheim Bell from South Carolina, and lands an all-ACC corner in Fentrail Cypress from Virginia, and goes and lands a one-on-one problem in Keon Coleman from Michigan State, Darrell Jackson from Miami playing on the defensive line. Like, you hear what I'm saying here. You know what I'm talking about. Florida State already had a good roster with a lot coming back, and then they just go a little Salt Bae, just sprinkle a couple of transfer portal guys on there, and the roster is primed to do some really good things. And to be honest with you, that's what we're going off of right now. We don't have all the in-season storylines. We have a roster. We have talent that we can evaluate right now. And I promise you, Florida State has some really good talent. Now, on top of that, what's the most important position in football, but in sports in general? It's the quarterback. And Florida State has got a good one coming back in Jordan Travis. So you got your quarterback, who's a stud, and a lot of people have in the Heisman conversation in the early going, ourselves included. You got a roster that won 10 games a year ago, and you got some beast mode guys coming through the transfer portal. Yeah, I'm buying hype in Florida State. Okay? We'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. Make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. Florida State fans, y'all have just been absolutely rabid for us. On the podcast trail, on Spotify and Apple, wherever you get your podcast, you can find the hard count. On YouTube, you all been subscribing like it's your job. If you haven't yet joined the party, now is the time. We talk college football every day. It's May. You're a sicko for this sport. We're sickos for this sport, so we appreciate you locking in with us. And follow me on Twitter. Follow me on the gram at JD Pakel. A great way for us to interact. So appreciate you for that. The roster at Florida State, to sum it all up, is no longer the issue. That was the reason why Mike Norvell had gone to the portal in years past. He was selling, hey, listen, we're trying to get this thing off the ground. We're trying to get Florida State back to where it needs to be, back to where it should be. Come to Florida State, transfer here, play right away, talking to guys in the portal, and they've had success doing that now. So now the roster is no longer the concern. The concern is the path ahead. That's what you're concerning yourself with if you're a Florida State fan. You're not worried about all the external. You're worried about the internal. You're worried about what's ahead of you right now. And another reason why I'm buying hype in Florida State, why I'm on the hype train, is the culture. And culture is so cliche. Culture is coach speak. Culture is hard to define. But I'll say this too, culture matters. Culture matters. What you have in that locker room, what your mentality is, that all matters. And every single year, we've said this before, every single year, teams across the country hit the reset button. You flush on what happened last year, you go forward. Not Florida State. That culture I just mentioned, returning production, that means guys that contributed, guys that were a part of that culture, that built that culture, they're back. So it's not a reset, flush, let's get back after it. It's what were we doing last year? Okay, we'll take that base, and now we'll just keep stacking bricks. We'll keep building on top of it. That's where Florida State's at right now. That's the luxury they have. And the culture is solid. I know what I'm getting. This is the same guys who bounced back from losing 3 in a row to finishing 6 in a row and winning 6 games in a row. They're the guys that had dogfights with Florida in a rivalry game, dogfight in the bowl game with Oklahoma, came out victorious in both those games. Guys that blocked the extra point to win the game against LSU to open the season. Like, everything about Florida State from a talent perspective, from a culture perspective, at this point in the year, in spring, before we even kick off the ball or start fall camp, I like it a lot. It's promising. And there's proof of concept there, both on the roster and on the culture. So, with that being said, you actually got to play games here soon, right? Like, we're eventually going to get to week 1. We'll get a Sunday game in Orlando. It'll be LSU. It'll be a rematch. It'll be a really good time. But if you're looking at the course ahead for Florida State, if that's what's concerning you, you feel pretty good. It's another reason to buy stock in Florida State. Because you look at Florida State's schedule, and their 2 biggest games of the season, their 2 toughest opponents of the season, are in the first month of the season. LSU week 1, Clemson week 4. Biggest games of the year. No way around it. Biggest games of the year if you're a Florida State fan. So why is that encouraging? That's the first week of the season? Well, you're probably going to be healthy. Just reality is you're probably a more healthy football team during September than you would be in November. And Florida State fans, you understand that you potentially could have had a better season last year had you stayed healthy the whole way. The defensive line was dinged up during the year. Jordan Travis got dinged up during the year. Like, if you're healthy in both these games, that's when you say, okay, let the chips fall where they may, but you know we're going to give you our best shot. We know we're coming out swinging, and we're not going to have to make excuses afterwards saying, well, if we were healthy, well, if this happened, well, if this guy was available. None of that. First month of the season, that's when you're the healthiest. So for Florida State, they're still going to play Miami. They're still going to go to Florida. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. But I'm buying hype. I'm buying the stock in Florida State because of what I just told you. The roster was already good. Then you go ahead and add some studs via the portal. The roster's not a problem anymore. The culture, I don't have questions about that. I know what Mike Norvell has built. Mike Norvell came on this very show and talked to us and told us about the way that they're just focusing on themselves, talked about the culture and the way they've built it at Florida State. I got no reservations. I know what they're going to be. I know what the makeup of that locker room is. Schedule looks nice. Is it easy? No, but you got your tough ones early, which means you should be healthy and able to deliver your best ball. I'm fired up for it, though. Fired up for it. We'll watch it like a hawk, and we will continue to talk college football every single day until the season, throughout the season. This is the place you want to be. So make sure you're locked in right here and subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at JD Pacala. Want to hear from y'all. We're live tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Hit the bell so you don't miss when we go live. We got Penn State's head coach James Franklin joining the program. You don't want to miss it. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.